Good morning, everybody. We will call the Wright County Board of Commissioners meeting for November 16th to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everybody. It's nice to see all these smiling faces. I'm just talking about the board up here. All right. County Board minutes for November 2nd. Does anybody have any changes, Commissioner Hewson?
Just under the advisory committee, advisory board updates, we could add Commissioner Wetter to the visit to Tyler Hilo.
And it wasn't virtual either.
No, it's not virtual.
All right. Anything else? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes
I'll second.
with that change.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Hewson. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Review and approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to add a MOU, a Memorandum of Agreement for county contributions for 2022 health insurance with the local 49ers unit. We have other unions on today, similar terms. Just received it yesterday. Thought it would be good to add. So I guess I would recommend we add that as consent C5.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda with the addition of C5 to the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a motion by Commissioner Fetch, second by Commissioner Wetter. Any other discussions? Anything else to add? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to remove for further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark.
thank you. Letter A, number 2, under administration for discussion, the assistant administration position replacement. Under administration finance, B as in boy 3, just an inquiry on process for that budget amendment. B as in boy 6, a question on the financial report for September, and one claim inquiry under B as in boy 7. I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda with those items removed for discussion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Hewson. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Ketchmark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first thing under A2, the request to replace the administration, county administrator assistant. I asked for a flow chart because we got the combined departments of finance and administration from Administrator Kelly, and I haven't seen that yet. I'd like to see that before we go further with this replacement, but also we have a retreat coming up in 3 weeks, and what was made mention as a purpose for that is to the word how lean were we going to be running and other things that we're going to discuss. So I'd like this matter tabled until we get more information on a flow chart about who's supervising who between the two departments that are combined and the results of our retreat that we're going to be having in the first part of December.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Vetch.
so kind of to piggyback on that, I have kind of some of the same questions. I wanted to see the org chart from administration as well as I wanted to see the org chart of administration and how it interacts with departmentals, all the departments across the county in the hierarchy. So that would be one thing, conversation I want to have. I am no doubt that the position is needed, but I do want to have some questions about that. And I also encouraged Administrator Kelly to review the job description itself, just because I feel like it reads a little bit clerical or assistant, administrative assistant, not assistant administrator. So kind of wanting it to have the robustness of the strategy and the implementation of strategies at the county level.
Personally, I'd like to see it get at least posted, just because we're not going to get anything until after the first of the year anyway. We can always do some changes in the future, but this position is going to take time to fill. I don't want to wait until the end of the year before we do anything about it. Commissioner Houston?
Mr. Chair, and that's legitimate, everyone has legitimate comments, but would it be better to get that job description kind of ironed out before you post it? Because, you know, it seems to me it would be better to have it all, you know, clean, rather than posting and then kind of adding different tweaks. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not that big of a deal.
I mean, it's an overarching conversation as to what are we envisioning this person or this position to do. I think it's relatively still a position that's in its infancy in the county, and it's been in its infancy at the point where it hasn't been utilized just because of the coming and goings of that role, and it's sat vacant for some period of time because of that. And because we made that transition from coordinator to assistant or to administrator role, and trying to work with the administrator in developing that role, because there definitely is some things that it could be leveraged for, or need to be leveraged for, I should say.
Administrator Kelly, do you have anything?
I appreciate the opportunity to comment on this position, and certainly it's an important one for the county and for administration. Again, if there are, as I mentioned, it's an important position, and if there are questions, I'd like to be able to discuss them. I did come with an org chart kind of today. It's very simple of how it lays out, but I'm guessing from the discussion you're looking to have further discussion on this. I'm interested in the input of the board on the best way to run the administration department. I certainly have my ideas, but I'm sensing there may be a disconnect between the members of the board and what that may be. So, willing to have that discussion. And during this period, I certainly was not anticipating that I would be filling this position in the recent time that we just filled it a few months ago and had this turnover, which was a bit unexpected, which has given me a good opportunity to speak to different commissioners, different stakeholders, department heads, and other staff within administration about the future of where we want to go. So I certainly have some ideas. Again, I do think that this is a very important position, and it's not sustainable for me to be supervising 18 direct reports with this position being full. I don't think that serves the citizens and the county staff very well by continuing that. So I guess at this time, those are my comments, and open for further discussion.
Chair?
Would
it behoove us to have a committee of the whole? So we could, if we had it, I don't know if people are available on the 19th, but that would give us time for discussion and to get it on next week's agenda if we wanted to move forward with this. You know, we have the org chart, we can have the discussion.
Thoughts, anyone?
Mr. Chair?
Pitchfork?
As far as the posting and any urgency there, truth be told, since the Sue Virgin left the post, the next replacement wasn't really here long enough to get acclimated and get a host of duties. I think Administrator Kelly would probably say that it was getting close to that time where you're going to turn over reins of some things, and it didn't happen. So we've been basically running without to a great degree since Sue Virgin left. So I think it's a good time for the transition, for the review, before we do a posting. Did you mention November 19th? Because I'm available for going over that, a morning time. Or
I won't be.
Okay.
And just a point clarification, board, of course, we did cancel the 23rd board meeting, so we would be out till the November
That's right, it would
30th
be the
date for any
30th.
action that we were going to take regarding this position, if it were to go through a committee situation.
And when's our retreat?
December 3rd.
So do we want to just wait until December 3rd to have that discussion, or do we want to have a discussion before that?
Well,
Which
Mr.
may help us with our December 3rd discussion.
Oh, right. Well, Mr. Chair, otherwise, if it's too soon to do on the 19th, we don't have a board meeting the 23rd, we could have that discussion on the 29th when we have the elected officials, after the elected officials meeting.
That works for me.
That's fine too.
All right. I'll look for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set the Committee of the Whole to discuss the Assistant Administrator position at 10:30 on November 29th.
I wouldn't even do that, because that one will be probably 30, 40 minutes. But before that, we
Whole
could
one?
you go 10 o'clock at least.
Okay.
Yeah, or just go a little
If
bit,
it-
yeah.
Yeah, let's go, okay. I will make a motion to set it for 10 o'clock on that date.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Ketchmark to have the Committee of the Whole on the 29th at 10 a.m. to discuss the Assistant County Administrator position. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And Mr. Chair, just a side note, I don't feel like this does us any harm on holding it open for another 30 days. Actually might be to our benefit. Job seekers in the fourth quarter are limited. Generally, this isn't the time of year. Actually, first quarter is actually one of the most robust because people know that government agencies get their renewed budgets and they know that the more new positions are open, so there'll be a much more potential robust candidate pool. So.
Commissioner Ketchmark.
Yes, under B as in boy 3, the approved budget amendment for the new hire of deputy recorder. So I read the request for board action here, and it's requested by the finance department for the recorder. So I spoke to both departments to figure out where this was at in relation to our budget review and approval 2 months ago. So what I found was that we approved this to start first part of 2022. The recorder's office saw a need, and then we approved it to be hired early. And as it turns out, they've already hired the person, and they started, how long ago? Within the, okay. So just a question on process. We're here today approving the budget amendment. I'm wondering if we could line things up a little closer or better to where the person hasn't already started here and is working before we approve the amendment to the budget. As far as procedure-wise, is there some way we could maybe match that up so that we're not just here nodding our heads out after everything's already done?
Yeah, I mean, I believe we could, good morning, Board and Commissioners. Yeah, I believe we can get a better process going when we get the approval on the consent. We maybe could do the budget adjustment at that point and
Okay.
follow it through. Always room for improvement.
Well, I was first confused why finance was asking for an amendment for recorder, but now I got that hashed out. And now,
Yeah,
That's-
finance asks for the budget adjustment,
okay.
yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that. And hopefully, yeah, we can get that a little clearer maybe, or to line up. Thanks, Heather. Okay. Next, B6, review the finance report for September 2021. There's a line in there that's second to the last paragraph. There's also an increase in overtime in several departments due to several large projects, technology projects. Just wondering a little more information about what departments this affects and what projects specifically, if there is, that is causing the overtime.
Okay, so it's mainly the recorders, the assessors, the finance. They have do the camera project, they have overtime. in their departments in order to kind of keep the lights running while they're working on the camera project. IT also has overtime, but I think that's for ERP. And if you have anything else to add. The attorneys also has some overtime, but that's due to new processes and they're putting in new software as well. And then planning and zoning has overtime, but that's due to the compost facility and the just change in process over there.
What specifically in the compost facility caused more overtime now than in the past?
Well, in the past, it was always recorded to the SCORE grant, and this year, in order to try to be more transparent, we've made a budget for overtime, and so now it's showed clearer this year than it maybe would have in the past.
That's, their overtime still comes out of the SCORE grant, though?
It does, yes.
Okay.
It's just called out as a separate line item now, so you see it clearer than you would have in the past.
Okay. Thanks for that explanation. It just kind of drew my attention to that. Next thing was a claim, B7, and it was for a little over $12,000 to Quinlivan and Hughes FLSA. I talked to Administrator Kelly. He said it's related to the incident that we discussed back in April. I'm just wondering, how many different law firms are working on this? Because it seems like the bills have come in different shapes and sizes, if I remember from the past. That's why I've asked about the different claims, because it was that.
Sure, to respond to that, so you're aware of Quinlivan and Hughes. They're advising us at the federal level statutes pieces on this case here. Because of the way it may move forward as a personnel issue, we're trying to separate that out from our usual labor council of Madden, Gallagher, and Hanson. So they've had some minimal claims. We've also sought some advisement from another firm to do some work for us as part of this, which is, I don't know, they're more of a financial firm than a legal firm, but you've seen those claims for AEG, Abdo Ike, Myers. So I guess if you total those three up, you get a number 3.
Okay. By my math, I think we're at like over $50,000 for this. Is there any end in sight, or?
You know, I don't have an end date. As I've mentioned before, this has certainly been an ambiguous process that we've worked through here and tried to do our best in working through it. That said, we do have another update. I believe it's Thursday, so I'll have some more substantial information hopefully at that time. As I mentioned previously, I'm anticipating, given the nature of this, it's going to result in a closed session with the board here at some point in the future. I'd love for that to be yet this year. I think all of us would love to see this wrapped up, so.
Thanks for the update. So with that, I'd approve the consent agenda with those items pulled for
Second that.
discussion.
You'll approve those items you pulled from the consent
Yes,
agenda.
yes.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Vetch.
Mr. Chair, just to the note, just for clarity, because if we're approving those ones for discussion, that would be with the recommendation of sitting on the item A2 on the authorization of the position replacement.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. 919, we're a little late, Virgil.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm going to speak to this one as Virgil's not able to attend in person. I believe he may be online, though, if wanted to chime in. What we're looking to do is set a transportation committee of the whole. As you know, we've been soliciting input regarding the local option sales tax and other transportation items. So Virgil has requested that we set up a meeting looking at different dates the week of the 30th of November on from there. So we can look at calendars for specific dates and times. The first one suggested was perhaps the afternoon of the 30th following the board meeting. Otherwise, potentially December 1st or 2nd. The next week we do get into the AMC conference.
Mr. Chair, I have crime lab on the 30th afternoon at 2.
How about the morning of the 1st?
I'm in Hutch.
Yeah.
if we went at 10:30, if we could have done, it would be, how it would be if we got done by 11:30, 12 o'clock?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think we should be able to do it in an hour and a half,
Right,
maybe.
as long as I'm,
Was that the
The
30th?
30th, yeah, if we did it between, said at 10:30 and hopefully we're done by noon.
yeah, as long as I'm out of here by 1.
Oh, then it'll be plenty good.
Probably make that.
I would assume Virgil's gonna maybe send correspondence ahead of time to review, or?
I would anticipate so, yes.
Virgil, you on with us?
You know, he said that
Yes.
he wasn't.
Morning, Board.
You wanna, can't hear ya.
Try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, Board.
Morning.
Morning.
Did you hear about the 30th? Does that work for you at 10:30?
30th at 10:30, would you like to have it at Highway or at the Government Center?
Probably at the Government Center since we'll be here for our board meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
And Commissioner Ketchmark had asked about having the information ahead of time.
Yes, we'll prepare a staff recommendation and kind of a summary of what we got for public engagement. So we will send that ahead of time by email, and we'll get an agenda out and posted and sent to all the townships and cities, because it'll be a public meeting that they're free to attend also.
Thanks for that, Virgil. I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback.
And then hour and a half, going to be enough time?
Yes.
Then I can have lunch.
All righty. I will look for a motion.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a committee of the whole on Tuesday, November 30th at 10:30 a.m. here in the county boardroom.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Betch, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thanks, Bert.
Thank you.
Dr. Matthijs, again, the doctor is just an honorary statement given to him by me.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just a small order of business today to request that you accept by resolution a donation from the Cedar Lake Conservation Club in the amount of $3,504. Part of that donation is for memorial benches at Schroeder Park. The other part is their donation for the CD3 machine. That's a cooperative venture between us and the Cedar Lake Conservation Club out at Schroeder Park. They help pay for the software and maintenance of that. We put all that money into the Schroeder Park account to pay those fees in 2022 and then to buy the benches.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ketchmark.
Good morning, Mark. So I just had a question. It says installing 2 memorial benches. So is that recognizing a certain cause or certain people, or what are we memorializing with the benches?
Commissioner Ketchmark, we have a memorial policy in our Parks and Rec Department with benches, trees, those types of things. And they are individual donations. So this lady, rather than giving us the money directly, she donated it to the Conservation Club, who then in turn sending it to us, and it is a memorial for her daughter.
Okay.
And we have them throughout our system.
All right.
We're up to 22, 23 memorial benches, half a dozen trees.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the donation by resolution from the Cedar Lake Conservation Club.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Betch, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say.
Resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry, resolution. Commissioner Ketchmark.
All right.
Aye.
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 Resolution carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you, Cedar Lake.
Good morning, Tanya.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have 2 plats today for signature and approval. The first one is Indian Lookout Second Edition. This one is located in Corinna Township. The property is on the north side of Indian Lake and contains 4 new lots.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize the recording of Indian Lookout Second Edition.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vett, second by Commissioner Houston. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
The second plat today is Hannah's Landing. This one is located in Southside Township. The land was previously owned by a church, and it's located on the north side of East Lake Sylvia. This one will contain 8 new lots.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize the recording of Hannah's Landing in Southside Township.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Vett, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any other discussions?
Here, just a question, Tanya. I think there was some discussion about some maybe prehistoric burials or whatever out there. That came up in some discussion, and I don't know if that was addressed per se, but I think that,
Cemetery or?
yeah, if there was.
I'm not sure that I know anything about that. Do you, Greg?
I do.
Oh, good.
So does Commissioner Ketchmark.
was
Mr. Chair,
asked that, so-
Commissioner Husum, thank you. Yeah, there was a lengthy discussion at the Planning Commission about the possibility of Indian burial mounds out on this plat. And the Planning Commission came to the conclusion that the property owners are aware of the potential for it. And if they disturb an Indian burial mound and they want to commit a felony, that's on them. But we're not the state archaeologist, and we're not going to regulate it.
Thank you.
They're aware of the possibility. They know it's out there. They need to go through the proper steps. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you. I will place these in the back for your signature.
All right, thank you. Scott Deckard, Planning and Zoning.
That's a new looking Scott.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you. I am speaking for Scott at the moment. I think I should point out that when I was recruited out of retirement to help out, nobody mentioned gravel pits being an imminent topic. But here we are. I wanted to make 2 points before I introduce Greg, because it's an EAW that is a request here today. Point out that this is not a public hearing. It is a public meeting. It's up to the board to decide if and how much input you may want to take during this discussion. You could keep it to yourself. You could certainly open it up for limited discussion. You're supposed to base your decision on the materials you have received, and I understand you've got that. I did note one mistake in one of the submittals. It stated that the property is zoned rural industrial. That is not true. The property is zoned simply agricultural. Mining is a conditional use in our agricultural zone. I just didn't want anybody to be misled by that mistake. The zoning here is agricultural. You have a petition for an EAW. I know the board has dealt with these in the past to some degree, and I asked Mr. Kreiser to come and explain a little bit about that process and what the criteria are. Scott and I will be here if there are questions about the specifics of the case, but as far as how you act on an EAW and what criteria to use, I'd ask Greg to help out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for that introduction. Mr. Chair, members of the board, you do have today before you an EAW determination that we need to make here. You have until December 9th to make your determination. Underneath the EQB rules, you have 15 or 30 business days. And you have to remember in the middle of that, we actually have 3 federal holidays, or 3 state holidays, so we get a little bit longer time because of that. So we have until December 9th to make the decision. So today we're just looking for the board to direct staff as to how you'd like to proceed. Do you want to do an EAW or do you not want to order it based off of the information in the citizens petition? I gave you a memorandum, emailed it to you yesterday, and then hand-delivered it as well this morning to you, which outlines the law and the criteria, or I should say the rules from the state, and the criteria to look at to determine whether or not there are significant environmental effects as a result of this proposed application. So Scott was going to bring up, there it is behind me, the location map for you. This is on Highway 25 north of Buffalo and the intersection of County Road 113. It's in the northeast corner. It's in the land use plan as commercial, and right now it's zoned general ag.
Mr. Chair, just a question for Mr. Chrysler. So the lot itself is 36 3/4 acres, correct?
Approximately,
Yes, and they're mining the entire lot. Because their
And-
application is for 36 3/4 acres, correct?
There would be some buffer around the edges, but essentially the plan is to mine.
So essentially, they're 3 1/4 acres of automatically triggering a EAW, correct?
If they mine over 40 acres, yes, it's a
Or
mandatory.
40 or more, so they're 3 1/4 acres short of, okay.
Automatic.
Yeah, automatic, okay.
Where are those two apple orchards? Do we have
A
a,
larger aerial?
It's
We go back.
right in the corner.
there's the one on the 25 that I know,
Yeah.
isn't there?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Right
Commissioners.
there.
Yeah, that one.
And then one over.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ketchmark.
they measured it out in feet in the packet. I believe it's 1,500 feet to the east is the one that they're pointing off the screen there.
To the east, okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Does anybody from the board want to hear from, do we have somebody from MBE here?
If people, I don't think, anyone want to talk? Listen, or up to you. You want to hear from them, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, are these the residents or MBE?
This is MBE.
Okay.
Commissioner, my name is Rob Bote. I'm from Eco Foresight Environmental Consulting. I believe you received a memo I wrote that responded to the petition and looked at potential for effects on land use, water quality, wildlife, air, noise, dust, things like that. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have questions regarding that memo.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ketchmark.
did the soil borings, and maybe I missed it in there, did the soil borings at all indicate how deep you were? I mean, because I think it said it was, 10 feet was listed in there, but I think that was, 10 feet was the minimum amount you were going to excavate, but could be deeper. Is there a depth of what you're considering mining based on soil borings?
We drilled 35 feet.
I'll need you to come up to the mic.
Yeah, the 10-foot distance refers to what's in the EAW rules. Is that if you're going to mine 40 acres or more to a depth of 10 feet or more.
Okay. And then I guess the question was then, was the soil borings, did the soil borings indicate as to what the potential mining depth could be?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I'm Paul Otto with Otto Associates. I'm the engineer that designed the plan. Yeah, the borings indicate there's material down to 35 feet, and our plan does show 35 feet. They did not encounter any water table in that 35 feet, so that is what the plan has, so.
Anybody else have any questions for MBE? Okay. Are there any residents that would like to speak?
Good morning, Board. I'm Steve Garvin, and I am the petition representative. I own the apple orchard to the east of the pit. It is, my concerns are written in the petition, along with many of my neighbors who have also signed the petition. We had well over 200 signatures that came in. We got the 170 or so that came in on this. So there's significant concern, and there's a lot of answers that are not addressed in the application that MBE has put before you. And we do believe that it would be of your benefit as well as ours to do a very in-depth look at what these economic and environmental issues could be. We've also addressed some of the other questions that we had hoped would be up for discussion. I was not aware that this meeting was happening until yesterday. But we have been in contact with the University of Minnesota, and they have agreed to draft a letter regarding some of the air pollutant conditions that could affect not just my orchard, but also Woods Edge Orchard. We've also been in contact with Newport Academy, who is the new business that is about 1,500 feet from this new proposed gravel pit. Newport Academy is a business that works on rehab for people in need of addictions and so forth, but they will be greatly affected, as we will, and we would humbly request that you consider doing the EAW, and this way we will have more answers to the questions that we have put before you. And I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Greg, quick question. Do you want to just explain to the board what an EAW is and what it all encompasses and stuff, if you would, please?
Yeah, it's an environmental assessment worksheet. There are 18 different criteria we look at. I think it's about 18 different criteria we look at as part of it. That we'd ask that the petitioners draft it up. Or not the petitioners, the applicants would take the first draft at it. Staff usually ends up reviewing it. There's usually a few drafts that go back and forth as part of the process. And then at the end, it gets published by the EQB monitor, open for public comment. Staff responds to public comments, and then the board has a public hearing as well as part of it. The end result of the EAW is to determine whether or not an EIS is required. That's the ultimate determination that you make at the end of it. But as part of the EAW process, you end up gathering environmental information that can be used for the Planning Commission when they decide the conditional use permit.
Chair.
Commissioner Ketchmark.
Thanks for the explanation. In addition, I'm wondering, what is the cost of an EAW, who pays for it, and who does it?
The applicant would have to pay for it. The applicant of the CUP would pay for the initial drafting of it. We do the review of it. It's technically the county's EAW because you're the RGU. So they draft it, but we review it for final, make sure it's complete.
Any idea what the cost is? Is it based on acreage or any other factor?
Depends on if they do it in-house, they hire an engineer on it. It all depends on what they want to do. I mean, MBE could have their own staff work on it. They could hire it out to Paul Otto, or I forget the other gentleman's name, their engineering firm. They could do it.
It's not a state-run board or anybody?
No.
With regard to the petition, I read that anybody that lives in Minnesota could sign the petition. Is that right?
That's correct.
Because I saw names from New Hope, Orono, et cetera, and I thought, okay, then in the fine print, it says that they are eligible, just have to live in the state.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, going through all the information, I believe that, it's certainly an EAW is a reasonable request for this. All the information about the silica, the 10,000 apple trees, I know in other states when they've done these reviews to, find out just how it impacts the really, environment. I believe this is a necessary step in our process to make the right decisions.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Fetch.
So I don't want to put in an unnecessary EAW. However, doing some research and looking at the concerns revolving dust and how dust affects fruit and flowering plants, and there is a substantial chance of potential low yields and as well as growth stoppage if there is substantial amount of dust subjected to those type of plant life. So the question is that because the proximity is very, very close to not just one, multiple of that type of agriculture in that area, so that would have a, once again, as to the statute, have a potential long-lasting effect on that agricultural structure that's in place. In addition, question, because the only way to mitigate that would be then a substantial amount of watering to do dust control. That would bring us to the next question as to what are the aquifer levels in that area, and can the well in the water table sustain such watering and not affect the aquifer at a level that the neighboring existing residents would be affected. So those are kind of the reasons. For that reasons, an EAW would be able to answer some of those questions, and I think it would only be fair that would be asked. So,
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ketchmark.
And for Greg, if this went through and these apple orchards brought up, hey, our production is way down due to dust, would that be left to a civil action suit against the pit owner then?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ketchmark, I take your question as, assuming that the Planning Commission approved the CUP and that the apple orchard then said that they had a harmful effect, yes, that would end up being a private civil matter between the parties. The county would not be involved in that.
And next,
Go ahead.
one other thing, and my internet's down, so I can't bring this up for review, but in my reading last night, there was a evaluation of the concerns done by somebody, I can't remember the name, maybe it's the gentleman that spoke, 30 years and looked at 100 of these applications before. Is that the gentleman that's here from MBE? Or does somebody have that document as to who? Oh, that is him? Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, I was just confirming, did you work for MBE then, or were hired to do this evaluation?
I was hired by MBE to write this memo, yes.
In response to concerns that were brought up by, through the petition and citizens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The previous EAWs, I worked for all kinds of different clients.
Okay, so you're not a state of Minnesota employee that's with the environmental board or anything like that?
No, I'm an independent consultant. I'm certified as a wetland professional by the state of Minnesota and as a senior ecologist by the Ecological Society of America.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in to put a face with the document here that was part of the packet here. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Not, I will look for a motion on what the board would like to do.
Mr. Chair, if I could, the proposed motion would be to direct staff to draft a resolution either ordering an EAW or declining an EAW.
Chair, I'll make a motion to request staff to draft a paper.
A resolution ordering that an EAW be completed.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll give you a second, for sure.
Motion by Commissioner Newsom, second by Commissioner Batch to request staff to put a resolution together for an EAW on this piece of property for a mining request. Is there any other discussions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ketchmark.
Just to clarify, Mr. Kreiser, so all the expense except for county attorney time to review this will be on the applicant, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. No further.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I read, I'm not sure which one it was, which hunk of material here, but they were only going to be working on 5 acres at a time. Was that correct? So about, if you're working on 5 acres at a time, how much water would actually be, I mean, How long would you think that would take from that 5 acres to go on to the next 5 acres? I guess I'm kind of curious about how much would actually be in the air and how much water probably would be on that. Hoping for rain.
That would be good.
I'm Bob Perry with MBE.
Okay.
Yeah, we would plan to do this in phases. First phase, we would like to put up perimeter berms surrounding the site. That would essentially get us so that when we start, we would be in a low area. 5 acre site is what we would work on, and after we would get down so far, of course, the angle repose of the banks, we would have to then begin working towards the next 5 acre parcel, but then we would also be bringing up and restoring the 5 acres that we had just done. The whole time that we would be doing this, we would be continue to have somebody be farming it, although we aren't farmers, but it's been farmed all this time. So there would be crop in the field and whatever job that would do to reduce the dust. We would intend to use asphalt on our haul roads, our driveway, to further minimize dust. We would have to put a well on site as well as a pond that we would line and capture water so that we would have our natural supply of water, not just water that we would be pumping out of the ground. There's many things that we can do to control the dust. The silica issue, I think we've got a letter from an aggregate engineer. If that silica, this is the same sand and gravel that most all the township roads are graded with in the area, and if there was a silica issue there, every child and person that's lived on a township road for years, and the apple orchards and gardens alongside of them, we'd all be sick with silica dust. And I don't see that. I mean, everybody's afraid of something. And I think that there's some fear on the part of petitioners that is it reasonable? There are other aggregate sources in the area that operate without the kind of a spotlight that's being shown on us. Others have gone through without any issue of a petition. Unfortunately, the aggregates are where they are. We can't go west or east and open up another site because we have to go where the aggregates are. Am I talking too much? No. So this is the site. For a number of years, big billboard out there that said for sale, had aggregates, location, whatever the wording was on it. There are pits nearby. The pits are depleting. We would like to get our berm set up and get ourselves in position so at least when we're able to start mining, have trucks going in and out, that we would already be somewhat hidden. You know yourselves that the pits that are local right in Buffalo, nearby here, there's not much left. They're depleted. They're primed for restoration. I think that there are going to be new sources needed. I think that we can do a good job of being a good neighbor with these people, and I think that there's too much fear. We've been in the areas, if you look at the packet, we've been in areas, done this before, and operated in neighborhoods without any issues.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ketchmark.
Thanks for coming up and being available here. Have you gone through the AW process before in other locations?
We haven't had to. It's never been requested.
And you've been doing a lot of homework apparently, and you got, your experts and advisors. What do you expect the cost and the time frame to get one done?
EAW will run us about $100,000 or more, depending on how much how much the petitioner does or not, or challenges the EAW. I'm sure that, I think that you said there's like a rough draft or a draft of it that we submit and then answer some questions, and then you can come back and ask us for more based on what the petitioner might be asking.
Is there a time frame, Mr. Kreiser, that if we vote to do this, that they have to submit the data for you to review?
No, there's no time frame. No, it stays out there until it's complete.
Okay.
I think that we're like 68 feet higher than the natural water level of Gilchrist Lake. So when they're talking about what we will be doing to the not the aquifer, but the subsurface waters, they're a long way down there. And if you were a soils engineer, I think that you would find that once water passes through so many feet of sand and gravel, that it's naturally filtered and clean for drinking. So for a long ways just to get to the subsurface water, much less actually drilling a well and getting water that is going to interfere with local well water that people have for their homes.
Commissioner Whiter?
Another question, nobody's addressed the noise issue. Seeing there's density around nearby, what would your hours of operation be?
Well, we can adjust our hours, of course. I think in the application, the county allows for 7 to 7. I believe it's 6 days a week. Yeah. We have other locations and have had other locations within the county, and rarely are we ever operating that many hours a day. I'm going to say that it's likely something more in the order of 7 in the morning, which we could adjust if we had to, and by 5 in the afternoon, generally we're cleaning up and done for the day. And Saturdays, if we have a project and a contractor that has to work on Saturdays, we'd like to be able to be open for that. Usually Saturdays are not a long day. They're a shorter day.
Thank you.
We can adjust our hours and, again, try to do our best to be good neighbors.
Commissioner Newsom?
And, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So you're anticipating that the average daily truck volume would be 76 to 80?
Not really. You know, when you fill out an application, you fill in the blanks, and some people can simply do the math and say, well, you got whatever it is, 375,000 tons, and you got so many days to get it out in, and this is what it's going to be. We intend to only use this for our own operation, for our own trucks, our own equipment. We don't intend to operate as a Barton Sand and Gravel or an Ag Industries or somebody that puts a sign out there, and all we got everybody that has a truck coming in, buying materials and going out to their own locations. We intend to use this to keep our business going. I don't know if you know who we are, MBE, we're out of Delano. Yep. We've been in the trucking business since 1984. So there'll be days when we won't have anything going in and out of there. Then, if we get a job and our location, trucking is location-based for that site. So if we get a job that is going to require 10,000 tons, we'll say to be delivered to Wayzata. That's a long haul. So people say, well, how many trucks is that going to be? Well, we'll have a lot of trucks doing that, but it'll be a very long haul. So it's not going to be very many trucks per hour. Versus if we had a project in Buffalo, we could probably do something with 5 trucks and have a production to keep a contractor quantity that he needs to keep himself efficient. We could do that with 5 trucks. So the number of trucks a day or how many days a week, we have to put something on paper. We will not be operating every day there. I don't see that happening. We are going to respond to contractors that have projects in the local area or is near in the local. You know, most of the product is probably going to go east of here, if you think about it. Think about anywhere east of here that you'd be able to set up an operation like we're trying to do. It gets more and more difficult. We keep getting pushed farther west. So I think that this area, the one that we've located, we're right on Highway 25, all season, 10-ton road. There's a lot of truck traffic on Highway 25 all day long. Right now, we're hauling out of Monticello, coming right past our site, all the way to County Road 92 and 12, between Maple Plain and Delano, hauling back and forth with our trucks to do that. Now, we could be stopping at our own site and supplying that project, but as it is, and my point there is the trucks are on the road. They're going to be on the road hauling from somewhere and making whatever noise that trucks make as they go up and down the road without stopping. Where we are, if you think about it, we come off of 25, slow down, pull off the road, go a little bit to the east, not very fast, and you got to slow down, pull into our pit. So that part of the haul is not going to make a lot of dust as we are on a good road and make our left-hand turn into the pit. Go in, do our business in the pit. We've got asphalt, and we can use water to control the dust. Come back out onto the county road. You're not going to go very fast, and you're slowing down already, so there shouldn't be a lot of dust there either, nor a lot of noise. And then that truck is going to back out on 25 and be going north or south, and the noise or the dust is, it's not going to be any more than what we're already doing as we drive back and forth past to these pits that are farther north, farther away.
Mr. Chair, question I have for Mr. Perry.
Yeah.
What are your time mining? Is this going to be like 4 years and you have it mined up, 10 years, 20 years?
We, you know, that's a good question. Try to estimate what it's going to take. We did the bypass in Long Lake, and that was 600,000 yards of sand that we removed and then disposed of approximately the same amount of product from that site. So essentially, we took a load of sand out, brought a load of clay back, and we put the clay back in the same hole and graded off, and then kept the black dirt topsoil that we had put in, essentially the berms around the site. Used that black dirt topsoil, we put that back over the land that we had refilled with clay and returned the property to farm field. We've got I can send you, it was in Wright County. I can show you where it is and you'd be able to see those sites. That was 600,000 yards. That job, I think we did, it was for Ames, and I think that job took about 3 years for us to do that portion of it. Along came the overpass, which extended that bypass at County Road 6, and we happened to, because we had location and equipment ready to do it, we happened to get that job with the next contractor, which again allowed us to essentially do the same thing, take sand out of a field, bring the dirt back in, and restore it to a cornfield again. Now, we've been doing that for landowners that are really appreciative, because essentially they can, not only are they able to keep farming their field, but they can sell their property twice in their lifetime. Once by the yard, going back and forth and helping a highway project out, and again, later in life when they're done farming and they sell the property, they can sell a farm field off. This particular.
Go ahead. I'm just trying to looking for, are you thinking 5, 10, 20, 50? That was the question I'm looking for.
Well, it depends on what comes up. 600,000 yards in 3 years, that's almost, well, Highway 25 is going to be redone from the whole corridor. If we could get all the product out of this pit on that project, that would be fantastic, but we might not have a permit by the time that's bid if we have to do the EAW. But there's a lot of other sites north of us that would probably be able to supply that too.
So the likelihood that it would be operating for at least a decade?
I'm going to say yes to
Okay.
that. I'm going to say yes.
Mr. Chair.
A few more comments. First of all, Mr. Perry, you are on my list of good operators as far as reclamation, so I do want to put that in there. And I struggle with this because I don't want to create a burden of work that's not necessary, especially for somebody who has a track record in our county of being a good operator. I wish this was an IUP, an interim use permit, where you're going to say that you're going to come in here, mine the resources, and get out in a 5-year period of time and move on. And I think I wouldn't be asking for quite the environmental research to it, but when you're looking at it for a prolonged period of time and the cumulative environmental effects to the surrounding areas, I kind of get pushed into a corner. Well, okay, I have to get that information then, because they're not just talking about living with it for a very short period of time. But I will yield over to Mr. Catchmore.
Thank you, and just for clarification, it might help Commissioner Vetch, but in the material, I saw operations from 2022 to 2031. That must have came from your camp.
Yes, it's not going to be something where, as you had said, and we've done that before, moved in, opened up a field for somebody and taken their sand out, rebuilt the field after we're done, and we're done for that job. But we have done some of those that we come in for a permit and the market crashes, nobody's building houses, nobody's doing streets, so then we sit and we have to get the permit renewed. But we do provide a bond restoration, and of course we pay our tax to the county, and we're good about that.
I got 2 questions. Are your trucks covered when
All
they
of
leave?
them, every one of them. You're talking about tarps?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they all have mufflers on them, quiet mufflers. They're new, good shape. The trucks going in and out of that location would be our company trucks, plus trucks that would work directly for us running with our company trucks. We do hire and operate with a lot of local independent contractors from around Wright County in the area. And so we do support some of the local folks here too.
Now, we do have a number of complaints regarding that intersection right now. And I know Highway 25, they're looking at what they're going to try and do, and I don't know when their plan was to
2026, I believe.
2026?
I think so. You might know better than I.
I can't remember the time frame, but it is on a agenda.
I know it, because they had a public.
They're getting their public comment then too,
Public
before they
comments right
actually
now.
put out any kind of illustrations.
Yeah, well, we just received a request to tell them what we would like to see done with Highway 25, because we use it.
Yep.
And now we own property right at that intersection, and the question was, would they do a roundabout there, or would they make it a 4-corner intersection again? And they were wondering what we wanted to do. So they're designing it. It's going to happen. So it's really, what would be better, a roundabout or 4 corners?
Roundabouts are safer.
Well, you don't get the T-bone in the roundabout, where somebody's pulling out, yeah.
Yep.
Then they'll probably limit access to 25. I guess with what Knife River has left in the pit right across the street from us, that of course doesn't have water, and they're mining and screening, and would have they renewed their pit, and there wasn't a chirp from anybody about, and they're closer to the apple orchard to the south of them than we are. But I would think that when Highway 25 is their design, that they'll be limiting access directly onto the highway. So that makes me wonder what will happen with Knife River's pit to the west and the one directly to the north of us, the old one that's being filled in. Hopefully, maybe they'll use something to finish that off so it's finally restored properly.
Greg?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can the state come in and say, we're going to do this road here and we need this gravel to do this?
No, the state would not mandate us to put in a gravel pit. No.
Just curious.
No, they'd put it out for bid, and whoever's the lowest bidder, get the job.
This would probably be the lowest cost for getting it done. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Sir, you want to make one statement?
You gotta come up.
You got to come up there, though.
First of all, I do want to say that I respect Mr. Perry, a man who can build a business as such as he has obviously been doing some good things. And I've seen many of the MBE trucks around our road, so he runs a very successful business. I don't think that should preclude doing EAW. I do think we still need the environmental questions asked. We have asked a few in our group what we thought the environmental EAW might cost, and it wasn't anywhere near $100,000. So I don't know what that number is, but I think it would behoove the board to still go forward with knowing those answers to those questions. Second, as pointed out in our petition, the applicant also owns 20 acres north of that 36-acre site that, had that been included in the application, it would have required an automatic EAW. So I do believe, and we believe, that that may be a future consideration for this company to dig that pit and extend it, which would also extend the life of the project. So again, I thank you for your time, and we're not afraid of what's going on here. It's just, it's a lot of congestion for one. And the silica dust is a real issue. If he's reclaiming concrete and crushing concrete that he brings in from other locations, we don't know where that concrete comes from. We don't know what the content of that concrete has. According to Thomas Koch, who was our industrial hygienist, who submitted his writings to us, those components contain heavy metals and other pollutants that need to be discussed or need to be looked at. So that's my primary reason for filing this petition, is because we bought the apple orchard. Wasn't aware of the Knife River expansion because we are new owners of this apple orchard. So the apple orchard has been around since 1985. Just like Mr. Perry's company. So we've been established. There's over 10,800 apple trees on my property, and I think Joe Schrader owns somewhere around 3,000 apple trees that are directly across from this. So there's a lot of other impacts that go into this than just being afraid of the gravel pit. You know, I do think that should be a consideration for the board, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you have.
If I could, I think that, first of all, if you read our packet and consider what we are doing in the process, the pace that we intend to proceed with, certainly berming and setting up so we would be quiet, we would be low in a hole, wind would go over us, dust would stay down. I hate to see us spend money, if you think about what an EAW is intended to do, and you understand our operation and operations of other companies like us in the area, I hate to see us go through the time and effort of an EAW for something that you probably can look at and say, well, we would be approved anyhow. And the last thing, Mr. Garvin, we had our application, and we purchased the property, had our application in for the mining permit well before the time that Mr. Garvin made the decision to purchase his apple farm and pursue a business there. We were already there trying to get the permit, our deal in place, and yet he made the decision to go into business with his business. So I don't know if that makes much difference to you.
Mr.
And the 10 acres north of us, those are actually set as residential, but they're still in ag, I understand that, but they're split off to be, the previous owner was going to build those into 10-acre lots for home sales. We, of course, bought those to further isolate ourselves. We would have bought the third piece, but there the person, I think we made him a very good offer, in fact, offered him his asking price, but decided that he would stay there and live surrounded by a gravel pit. So,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Vetch?
Greg, question for you. So if at some point if an EAW is ordered now and 8 years from now they decided they were going to mine 10 more acres, 20 more acres, would that same EAW be sufficient, or would that still then trigger another EAW as it goes past the 40-acre part?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Vetch, I haven't researched that specific issue, but I would imagine it would be sufficient.
Yeah.
I would imagine if we reached out to the EQB board, they would say, you've done it on the parcel, you're good to go.
So in some ways, they may pay it now or they may pay it later, but there is some potential cost savings, because eventually, if they want to do any more, they're going to have to.
actually, if we got into business and proved that ourselves to be good neighbors, the neighborhood probably would not. With this right now is responding to a petition, not to requests from Wright County Planning and Zoning.
No, but it's state statute if you go beyond 40. So if we ordered it now and then you say you went 10 more acres later on, you wouldn't be forced then to do one later because this one would be potentially sufficient.
Correct. We would likely follow our first operation and plan our phasing so that the last 5 acres. Now we're going to, if it was financially feasible, go into the next 10-acre parcel, and at that point we would substantially have this complete before we would.
So you're saying you would close it for a period of time and then go for a whole new CUP to avoid getting an EAW? No. I hope we wouldn't go that route.
No, I don't think so. No. We would have substantially mined and backfilled and restored according to our plan. And then decide if we needed to stay in business here, or if we not, we simply close up what we've done and begin developing into what I think is going to be commercial industrial property in the end for us. The city of Buffalo intends to annex to 50th Street, so I assume there's going to be sewer and water and utilities there in the future. And with where we are, what better use for that property than to make it into a commercial industrial site, and we would have utilities right there to do it. What is the intent? What are they going to do with these properties? Highway 25s?
I guess the point was just that if the EAW is ordered now, that it may just be a savings to you that you won't actualize for 5, 10 years down the road if you decided to mine an additional 10 acres. I guess that was the point that I was trying to.
Commissioner, if there was an EAW done now on this, like 36 acres, and the intent, as I understand it, is to like stop the mining after the 36 acres. So if they were to decide to mine more, and that additional mining wasn't addressed in this EAW, then it would have to be covered under its own EAW if it exceeds 60 acres, or if it exceeds, 40 acres, 40 acres or more. If the expansion is done within 3 years of the current EAW, then the EAW would need to be reopened and amended. But if it's more than 3 years, then it's considered a separate project for purposes of EAW thresholds.
So you'd be better off incorporating that area into your potential EAW so that if it was ordered that way, you'd at least have the ability to have that information already there. Because I'm guessing to add on 20 more acres is probably, the cost-wise is probably not the biggest driver of it. It's the work, whether it's on 30 acres or whether it's on 60 acres, the cost is probably pretty linear.
Yeah, true, but it really depends on what the applicant's intentions are, how much property they have options on, and what their forecast for their business is. The other thing that I think for you to keep in mind, commissioners, is that the basic purpose of an EAW is considered a document to lay out the basic facts about whether or not a project has potential for significant environmental effects. The purpose of the petition process is to demonstrate that a project may have potential for significant environmental effects. EAWs are not exhaustive studies, so according to some of the concerns I've heard about noise and dust, for instance, an EAW wouldn't encompass looking at crushing and what those components might be made up of. I think the soil borings indicate that native soils don't have a lot of silica. And so that's kind of the level that an EAW would go to. It wouldn't have a really detailed land use compatibility study, but it would just cite the comprehensive plans and the zonings and things like that. It wouldn't have a specific study on potential effects of aggregate mining on orchards, but it might involve something like some kind of literature review.
Okay, are there any other questions for Dylan? Did you catch Mark?
Sir, one more question. So you could be not Mr. Perry, but if you could potentially be hired to do the EAW by Mr. Perry, right? Or wouldn't you?
Right.
And then potentially
That
you,
works for the county.
well, it's up to you, according to our attorney, that Mr. Perry can hire who he wants to do it. So I'm just wondering, we already saw your response to the questions in the petition, right? You evaluated those and you had responses to it. So if you were hired to do the EAW, we potentially would be looking at the same types of responses to the concerns that you submitted in the packet for today.
There would be some similarities, but an EAW would include more detail. And then the other thing that happens with an EAW is that I've done this with probably 40 or 50 responsible governmental units where I write it, I send it to them, the county staff has an opportunity to edit it, and they have to sign off on it and adopt it as their own. So that's basically ensures that they can kind of double check the facts if they feel they need to, and make sure that it's an objective study that has the facts relevant to the environmental effect.
That's kind of my next question then is what do we do? Do we have consultants or what kind of expertise do we have to evaluate the result of that EAW by the applicant?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ketchmark, in the past, what we've done as staff is used our expertise that we have within the county to evaluate it. I mean, we have engineers on staff in the highway department. We have expertise in land use and wetlands with soil and water. We gather all the experts we have within the county to evaluate what has been submitted as a draft. And we do make edits to it. We will make comments back. We will ask for additional information, most likely. And at the end of the day, they were correct. It becomes the county's document that we present in an unbiased format.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, and to this Commissioner Ketchmark's point about litigation, civil litigation, that document, if it was there and it was found to be harm to, say, apples down the road, that would be probably a key document that would be used in that civil litigation potentially down the road into what was done or not done based on these recommendations. And if those recommendations aren't there, then there's a little bit more of a difficult hurdle for a potential civil litigation, or at least for the information. But I guess it's hard. Commissioner Ketchmark, you agree with me. We went through this whole solar piece, and for whatever reason, we pick arbitrary numbers on what triggers us to do things and what not to do things. All right, whether it's 1 megawatt or 1.5 megawatt, whether it's 36 3/4 acres or 40 acres, and I hate where we just pick arbitrary numbers and people go real close to that arbitrary number, but not over it, because we wouldn't want to go over it, because if we go over it, then we'd have to pay more fees. So it's, you know, if this was like 15 acres or 20 acres, yeah, but it's kind of like having a 3 solar farms that are 1 megawatt apiece, but well, they don't have to pay production tax because they're all they're just co-locating. Yeah, it's kind of the same pieces, and that's where I'm kind of.
All right, we have another meeting at 10:30. Greg, do you have any other comments?
Nothing else, Mr. Chair.
Planning and zoning?
Mr. Chair, I don't want to prolong this, but a little history may be in order. As was pointed out, this site was designated commercial in the land use plan. And at that time, this is 10, 11, 12 years ago, there was a lot of work done on gravel mining in the Highway 25 corridor, which was, you'll find, not formally adopted at the end. But the gravel mining at that time was planned to be further north. This is a legal application, don't take me wrong, but the landowners at the time and the town board wanted this site designated commercial and the land around it designated residential. That is not directly related to the environmental impacts, but it's history that I think needs to be taken into account. I'll state from personal experience that that is currently one of the worst intersections in Wright County. It can be improved, and I assume anybody going in there would be expected to help improve it as part of the process. And finally, the note here on the map made me think, one of the reasons it's commercial designation, it's a nice flat piece of property as opposed to a 35-foot deep hole in the ground, which will change things down the road. The note said that it'll be restored to existing contours. Now, I haven't seen too many 35-foot deep gravel pits completely restored to that existing contour, and I don't know, maybe that is part of the plan, that every load you haul out, another load gets hauled in. But if that's the case, we're going to have to need to include that in an environmental study. What is being hauled in? What kind of materials are being hauled in? I agree, Mr. Perry is a good operator. Things change hands, and in my experience, not so good operators dump a lot of stuff in holes in the ground and cover it up that we should be careful about. My point is, if this is going to be restored, if there's going to be 35 feet of fill hauled in to replace the gravel that's hauled out, we need to consider that and how that works into any environmental review we do.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. Anybody else have anything to add? All right. Let's see, the motion was by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Vetch, to have staff draw a resolution for an EAW. Correct, Craig?
That's correct.
That's correct.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-2.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'll work with staff, but we'll have this on the agenda. Your deadline is the 9th, no later than the 7th. I'm not sure if we have a meeting on the 30th or the 7th, but we'll get it on.
We don't have one on the 7th.
No, I know
We're
have
meeting the
AMC.
30th, though.
I don't know when AMC is, but we'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
the 7th we have that's AMC.
That's AMC? Okay, sounds good.
Thank
All right.
you.
Okay. Commissioner Newsom, Wright County Board Workshop Minutes.
All right. People get out here. All right, the Wright County Board met for their workshop on November 9th. All commissioners were present along with a lot of staff. Administrator Kelly, the first item was to schedule meetings as needed. And essentially, there was a personnel committee that was discussed, and the commissioners confirmed they would be at the meeting. And the committee date is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, which is the Association of Minnesota Counties. So delighted said the board should meet in December instead. The legislative discussion was number 2 for the 2022 session, and we, Commissioner Vetch, talked about the topics he'd like to see: the License Bureau Services, homestead exclusion modification, waste management, landfill, drainage law cleanup, and Leiden suggested adding broadband to the topics. And we also, he had done some research on federal infrastructure bill, and Minnesota is set to receive an estimated $6.8 billion. The bulk of the funding is for road and bridges. And our lobbyist, Shane Zert, said that the legislature directed the Department of Revenue to begin a process for holding stakeholder meetings, evaluating the state of utilities and pipeline valuations, which includes our nuclear power plant in Monticello. And Kelly said the 2022 legislative session begins on Monday, January 31st, and so we needed to look at some dates. The recommendation was to look at Monday, December 13th at 1 p.m., Tuesday, 10 a.m. on Monday, December 13th, or 1 p.m. Tuesday, December 14th to meet with the legislators. The third was changes to the fees for services, and there was some changes to those. One was the local assessor setup went from $50 to $200, and a lot of that is because the county is providing computers for the local assessors and IT resources are being used. And we also had some planning and zoning discussions for conditional use permit, and the discussed having the mineral extraction mining should be added up to the same line at $750, and the septic loan application fee, it was an unusual amount of $172. Basically, $50 goes to planning and zoning, $50 to finance and taxpayer services, and the rest is a designated recorder's fee. So they're looking at keeping those amounts of money consistent with all the departments to split. And There is a sliding fee for planning and zoning. If a person comes in with a new house permit, it's whatever is on the original plans is how the value is assessed. If they come back, such as finishing a basement, et cetera, it would be on a fixed fee schedule. And county surveyor Steve Job said there's a typo with the size list in the fee schedule, so they would correct that. Recommendation, planning and zoning would add accessory uses to mineral extraction mining line in the fee schedule in the amount of $750. Add the word home to farm accessory mobile home. Job will send the correct size that should be listed on the fee schedule, and he will also send updated wording for the fee schedule. Number 4 was deferred compensation, and Lindsay Myers said that currently employee participation in deferred compensation is low. There's about 170 out of 788 employees that utilize this, and the most utilized plan is the Minnesota State Retirement Plan. And so there was some discussion about the fees related to each plan and how the employees are participated or charged. And Ketchmark asked for clarification. Wrong page, sorry. Said he received feedback from employees, and they would like to see more than just the four plans, but it does become a little more cumbersome to add those. So recommendation was information only. We discussed the government center use agreement, number 5, and the lease agreement for Wright County Economic Development Partnership was drafted based on their square footage. And there was a little discrepancy in the amounts. They would be paying half of the rent in February 1st, 2022, and the second half in July of 2022, and the amount should read $7,180.05 for each. The dental clinic update. Project Administrator Elizabeth Carroll said the use agreement looks different than the use agreement for the Wright County Economic Development Partnership because the language is required by the state because the county received bonding money. So it'll look a little different. The lease is good for 3 years, and we discussed about the 3-year term would be renewable for 5-year terms after that for a total of 18 years. And Ketchmark asked about the janitorial services, and under state, Harrington said under state bonding guidelines, the county cannot charge CDC anything more than the cost of the operations for the building. So they may have additional specific medical services that they'll be responsible for. And we also then talked about clarifying the parking spaces, and they will be designated 22 parking spaces for the CDC employees, and that will be on the south side of the building. And the concern that our Facility Services Director, Alan Wilczek, had is that dental patients cannot come in the front door of the government center and get down to the lower level, so they will need to access. And we talked about a large sign above the dental clinic, and we're going to get some more information about that. Should it be lit? How big should it be? That kind of thing. And so the recommendation is Wilczek will provide the board with measurement and renderings of the dental clinic signage. Then we talked about the move and to the government center. Wilczek said that select commercial services was selected, and we will start getting our boxes of materials dropped off on January 3rd, 2022. The building will be staged on January 14th. Tentative moving date will start on the 18th. And a lot of discussion about, making sure that it's well signed, that people know that we have moved. Recommendation, also he talked about the plants, meeting with the plant person. Wilczek will let Hewsome know when the person who takes care of plants can move can come over to the new building to look, and signage to be posted at the current government center. And the last item, 8, compost facility, RFP review. We walked through the request for proposals to give us estimates of what taking a look at the compost facility, the buildings, the properties, that kind of thing. And talked about SCORE funding could be used, and we weren't sure about that. But the recommendation basically is that we chose Stantec to go ahead to look at this project, and the contract is not to exceed $75,000 for the 6 months that it may take them. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will move the minutes and the recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any discussions? Commissioner Wetter.
On page 3, down where they're talking about the dental clinic, I would think that first it talks about the 3 years for the lease agreement. Then it talks about renewal of 5, and I think you should put 3-year terms, because that would then equal 18. The 3 is not in there.
So it's my understanding the first initial term will be 3 years, and then a renewal would be 5-year terms subsequent.
Right, so that'd be
So if you
5,
did
10,
3
15, 16, 17, 18.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
okay. I just thought it was clear if it was with 5 3-year terms.
Sure.
I don't know.
Okay, any other discussions?
Mr. Chair, just wanted to point out, we had talked about setting some dates for that legislative meeting. We've heard back from the majority of our legislators. It appears we have about an even split of 6 attendees, either the 13th or the 14th, some of them indicating they will attend in person, some attend remotely. So I was just going to ask if we wanted to pick one of those 2 dates this time.
Which one has the most in-person attendance?
Yeah.
One moment.
And who are they?
Here.
That might depend too.
It appears that boy, it's close. Appears you're going to have more in person on the 14th.
We said the afternoon on the 14th, I'm guessing, because there's a broadband meeting, right? Wasn't that what we said? Yeah.
That's correct. We had said 1 p.m. on the 14th.
There is broadband, you said?
We have broadband in the
Just
10th.
the committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me.
Either one works for me. I mean, because we have HHS on the 13th.
How long are we thinking that will take?
Usually a couple hours at least,
hour and
maybe
a half.
2.
Hour and a half, 90 minutes is probably
Think
about.
so?
Yep.
Seems like we've gone like 2, yeah, maybe.
Well, the meeting, and then there's always discussions afterwards.
But I'd say if we're doing 14th, I probably said it like 1 o'clock, so
That works for me.
I'm with that too.
All right. We need a motion for that then?
Chair, I'll make a.
Afterwards. We
Oh,
still haven't.
Oh, we haven't voted on that one yet. That's
Correct.
Right. Is that do we consider that a committee of the whole? I don't remember what we consider that one to be.
I think traditionally we have, just with all 5 attending, we've posted it, of course.
I suppose we debate the subjects, yeah.
You know, we typically don't have action items coming out of it. It's just been the easiest to post it as a public meeting, so.
Okay, any other discussions? So right now, we are voting on the county workshop minutes and recommendations. Any other discussions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All the same side, motion carries unanimous. Somebody want to do,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a committee of the whole for the legislators on December 14th at 1 o'clock p.m.
I'll second.
motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All the same sign, motion carries unanimous. All right, Personnel Committee, Commissioner Vetch.
All right, so last week on Wednesday, myself and Commissioner Dowliden, along with a variety of staff, were convened to discuss the first item, the account clerk positions at Health and Human Services. They were looking to reclassify 3 full-time to 2.5 full-time, so 3 full-time account clerks to 2.5 account technicians. This is largely because of the change with technology, and the scope of the work is no longer so much hands-on to being more of a knowledge base. And the work that they are currently doing and need to continue to do is no longer going to be the data entry and scanning. It's going to be more of the coding and the grant management pieces to the work. So this is more about representing the change in work and the change in technology and the scope of the candidates that they need to do that work. There is a cost savings to it. It's not, I mean,
It's really not gonna be a cost.
no, it's
saving, but
about
it's gonna be budget neutral after looking
it's
at.
like $6,000 is what it kind of looked at. After the modifications. That,
Oh, you did
Yeah,
look
I
at
did see that.
modifications.
It was like somewhere between 5 and 10. They weren't.
It was reduced.
Yeah, it was reduced. They were looking more at like 18,000, but it got diluted down to a lot.
And this is Jamie. I believe the numbers I heard that we were predicting a $17,000 savings, and after calculating it, it was like 8,900.
Yep. So with that, then the recommendation was to reclassify the account clerk positions to the account technicians. The second one was to reclassify a vacant child support officer to an eligibility specialist. This is an additional cost savings as well, but this one is largely because the child support officers, it's so efficient. That's what all the words I worked at. They are able to do a lot more with a lot less there, but the growth and the demand in the eligibility specialist is growing, so it's about really just taking the work where it's not needed and putting it where it's needed, and there is a small savings as well. And the recommendation was to approve the reclassify of the child support officer to an eligibility specialist. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Committee of the Whole, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Yes, thank you. November 11th, all the commissioners met, Sheriff Derringer and...
Whoa, wait a minute. You said November 11th? Okay. Yeah.
Oh. All right. Okay, so we'll make a correction there to the right date at the top, that we actually met on November 10th. And purpose was check into residents' inquiry about dog training at the compost facility. Sheriff Derringer advised that this training has been going on with deputies and their canines for many years. There wasn't any initial agreement in writing that was located. Derringer said that most of the training is between Wright County deputies and a couple others. There was one occasion in 2021 where last minute there wasn't another location, so a group met at the compost facility from other agencies. They did training out there. There was discussion about liability of the operation out there, and it ended up with a recommendation that Risk Manager Dahl and Attorney Kreiser will review the situation and come up with a draft of an agreement for indemnification as needed. With that, I would approve those minutes with the recommendation.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Houston. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Since we've been running late, I'm going to forego advisory committee, advisory board updates unless somebody has something that's very pressing that needs to be done. Mr. Kelly, do you have anything that needs to be addressed?
Two things quickly. Just I'll speak more in the future about ERP, but we're planning to move forward on the first phase of that. I've requested a statement of work from Sierra Cedar, at which point we'll have to come before the board. So I can speak more to that. There's been a lot happening with that in the past week. So, and then just a reminder, open enrollment ends Sunday, so make sure you guys fill out your stuff for open enrollment.
Thank you. Open enrollment.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about
I have a
that.
note, I have a note to do that.
Yeah, I tried to do it from home, it didn't work.
Oh.
All right, good. Anything else? We are adjourned at 10:45.